Hey, turning dirt and wrenches here, and today I was decided to do a video on my combine. This is a Gleaner E, and I believe we figured it out to be a 1964, but don't quote me on that. But it is just a plain E. It's not an E3 or anything like that. And this combine had quite the comeback story. A friend of mine had it, and he was a dairy farmer back in the day, and it sat in his shed. He bought it because they picked all their corn on the ear, but he wanted something to open the fields up with because they had a pull behind New Idea corn picker. So he bought this used way back, and used it a little bit, and then ended up getting out of dairy farming and going a different route. But he kept it, and it sat in the back of his barn, hadn't run for, I think we figured, about 37-ish years, somewhere in there is the best we could figure. And we decided to get it going. And I actually have gone through this combine and changed every single sealed bearing that is on this combine. Every single rubber hose is new, every belt is new, and we've used it for 3 years now on my farm. And it's a nice combine. I know Gleaner's had a reputation, especially Gleaner E's, for doing a really nice job. And I mean, man, the only corn that this leaves in the field is the little bit that shells at the head. And I've played with the stripper plates and everything and toned that down, but if it goes in the combine, there's absolutely nothing that's coming out the back. I mean, it shells everything, it cleans everything out. It's amazing. Does a really nice job. So let's see. He had a 2-row wide head, which I have, and then he had a 10-foot grain head, which I have as well. But I wanted to switch to 30s, and I found this 30-inch 3-row corn head for a Gleaner E for sale, actually in Pennsylvania. And that was an interesting thing. I actually bought it sight unseen. As you can see, it's got the actual pins made for a Gleaner E. I'm not positive, but I think the E3 might attach differently. But this is the only Gleaner Alice Chalmers I've ever been around, so I'm sure you guys that know more would be able to enlighten me on that. But this is actually made for an E. And we went through that and changed the bearings and whatnot that needed changed. And that was interesting. I'd never bought anything sight unseen, and then had a hotshot trucker bring it out to me from Pennsylvania. The guy I bought it from a guy in Canada, and I have never seen another 3-row 30-inch head, or any 30-inch head for a Gleaner E for that matter, for sale. Since then, that's been 4 years, I think. But I like it because, as you can see, that the tires, they just barely miss the last rows. But you don't change the spacing, because I know a guy that uses an E3 for test plots, and I saw that combine briefly, and he had actually had a machine shop cut down a wide 2-row into a 30, and then he'd had to have all the axles shortened, and I'm not sure exactly how he got away with. I guess you got some space there to play with, but I bet it was all pretty tight in there to shorten up the wheel spacing so that it would work. But this one works just fine because I'm not, I'm straddling 1 row right in the center, and then it works perfect with my 6-row planter. There's 2 passes with combine is 1 planter pass. So by driving straight down that center row, you can get away with the same spacing. So this can switch back to wide row or the grain table real easy and not have any problem. And I'd read a lot of people had trouble with this in down corn, and I have not had. I had less trouble than some guys with newer combines a couple years ago when we had some real bad down corn, that great big storm that hit Iowa. This just slid right through it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm not going as fast as other people, who knows. But once in a while you'd get some that would lay down right here and wouldn't go down, but it would keep feeding underneath it, and I'd stop and, you know, clean them off just so I could see what was going on. But I never really had any trouble with feeding. It does a great job. Really a shame it has to sit out at the moment, but we're working on getting a building put up so all this can sit inside. Let's see here. I mean, there's not really much to these. That's something I really like. There are no shields missing that I'm aware of. This is just what you got on a Gleaner in the early 60s. Everything's right out in the open, but it's easy to get to. Trash doesn't build up too much because there's no shields for it to build up behind. You got all those wood blocks for your chain tension, and it's real simple. It's hydraulic, variable sheave. So you got like a 3-speed, and I'll show you when we get up there, but then you have a variable speed inside each gear. Did put new cylinders on it, and there's a piece from the cab, that carpet. All right, so let's see. It's got the grain tank extension that was actually dealer installed. It's not factory, but it was dealer installed, as well as this cab was installed by the dealer. And I actually got to meet the guy that still owns the dealership where this was sold from. They don't sell Alice Chalmers anymore. They got Kubotas and Grasshoppers. But he told me back then he was in high school, and there's a good chance that he put this grain tank extension and cab on this very combine. He said they would come in on the rail cars without a cab with a grain tank extension, but they had the long elevators. And then he'd drive them off the rail cars, drive them to the dealership that was in the same town, and then you know, all this after school. And then he would put the grain tank extensions, and the cabs came in a box that you put together. I believe that's the same motor that's in a D17. I don't know if it's completely identical, but I think it's pretty close. And that amazed me. The only thing that's been done to that motor is points condenser, cap and rotor, and a fuel pump. And then we did, you know, clean out the carburetor. This had a lot of old fuel in it, but no major engine work on that motor. It fired right up and runs real nice. I do have a chopper for this, but I don't put it on because I don't really need to chop the corn stalks. And when we do wheat, if I do wheat with this machine, I want to be able to bale the straw, so there's no reason to spread it out. But it's real simple. 3 straw walkers. No power steering. This is all Armstrong steering, but there's less to leak. Not a lot of trash can build up around this motor either. I've never had any worry of fire or anything like that. Never really had a lot of trouble with trash building up on that screen either. I wondered about that, not being a rotary. But it seems to work just fine. Doesn't ever really run hot. Just a nice running machine. Easy to set. I mean, not as easy as a new one, but for a very affordable machine to even completely rebuild. I rebuilt this, you know, totally for less money than most of them having a few tires on their new combines. And I don't need a big combine for what I'm doing. This is just the perfect size. I don't know if it's possible to get it stuck. The tires we got, I wanted radial tires so it'd ride a little nicer, and all they had was these great big things. I don't know if they're for rice or what, but this thing is so light and got so much traction. I mean, I went through some stuff I probably shouldn't have with it and didn't have any trouble getting stuck. Actually, the guy at the dealership told me that he remembers using a Gleaner E way back, and this is his story, not mine, but he said they had a really wet fall, and they had water standing in the fields, and he combined corn in like 6 inches of standing water, and it just went right through it. So I kind of believe that from the mud that I have been in, but I've never tried to combine in that bad of conditions. Well, let's go up to the cab. Did have that one crack that was in it when I got it. This is a full vision cab, and it's kind of neat. I have never seen another one that has a bifold door to get inside it, which is that's pretty neat. So let's see. Got a fan, no air conditioning in this, but fan and a little light. I put that little light up there. You can open the side windows if you want. Someday I'd like to put air conditioning in it, because I have seen someone who's done that. He said you have to slow down a tad when the compressor kicks on, but that'd be fine with me if I had air conditioning. So you got clutch and brake, and then this is your auxiliary, your remote hydraulic, because the header has hydraulic up and down on the reel, and that is what that's for. You don't use that on the corn head. But you have this joystick that up is up on the corn head or your feeder house, down is down on the feeder house, and back is slowing down your variable drive on your transmission, and forward is speeding it up. So you just sit here with this lever and you can do it all. I installed the tach because I wanted to be able to tell what the motor is doing. Being all the way in the back, you really don't hear it a whole lot, especially when everything else is running. So I wanted to be able to monitor the RPMs, see if I was pulling it down or whatnot. Here's your shifter, which is just a normal 3-speed, reverse, first, second, third, neutral. That is a warning, because this has a kind of unique way to protect for rocks. I'll show you that when I get out. That's your throttle, choke, all your instruments, you know, water, amps, oil. Oh, that's water, amps, and oil. That's the flashers. That's the lights, key, all that normal stuff. Not really a whole lot. That's my little heater. And your central fire extinguisher if you're going to run a combine. It looks like it's a Gleaner F right now because the bottom part of the E got knocked off, but having a cab, that decal stayed in pretty nice shape. Got a little slider back here. Got these little cutouts in a screen so you can tell when you're almost full, and then really close to full, and then when it starts dribbling on your cab, you know you've gone too far. You want to stop before that. And this is kind of interesting because, see, these originally came without cabs, and this is an aftermarket cab. So you got this little rubber thing with a slit that you put your hand through, because outside, this big lever is the separator engage, disengage, and this is unload, engage, disengage. You got to reach your arm through the side of the cab, which is kind of unique. Let's see. I'll show you the rock trap. Might be easier on the other side without that ladder. Let's see if I need to get a flashlight. Oh, probably not. So you see this mechanism in here, and then this right here is where your cylinder is. And let's see, this piece is a trap door. It's hinged up here, and that is kind of like an over center lever. There's a spring in there and a latch. If a rock gets in your cylinder, it has enough force to kick this open, if it's working right, and I know this one does, and it'll kick this open and open up the bottom of your cylinder and let the rock out. That way it doesn't damage the bars or anything. But you can't, you really don't know that that's happened. There's no way to really hear it with the combines running. And the only way you know is all of a sudden you don't have a lot of crop going in your grain tank. But by then you've already spilled it all over the field. So that's what that big red light's for. There's a switch right in the back here. Here's a wire. And if this trips, that switch kicks on that light, and that light starts flashing, and that tells you that your door is open. You need to stop and fix that. And basically you just push this back up, and I always carry a big hammer with me, and you just tap that, and then it's relatched. And it's got a chain on it to make sure it doesn't fall too far. But that's how that works. And that's the unique thing about the Gleaners, less moving parts. So I'll just take you on a tour of where the grain goes. Whatever you're cutting comes in here, and you got this feed accelerator right here, and that kicks it into the cylinder directly. There's no feeder house chains or anything like on a John Deere. It just goes right into the cylinder. The cylinder threshes it, and then just from enough material being pushed in, it kicks it up here and pushes it out. And then there's another feed accelerator here that shoots it inside. And then there's what they call the rattle chain, which is just a conveyor chain, kind of like your feeder house chain. It's almost like it's flipped from what a John Deere is. But it's just a chain with slats on it that comes all the way up here. And where would it come? I think it comes all the way up here and throws it on the straw walkers. And then I believe, because this has 2 fans, it's got that lower main fan runs into the separator, your chaffer and sieve. And the upper fan actually runs through the straw walker chamber. And so I could actually take this open, and that would make a little more sense. You can see in here. There we go. This new camera does wonders. So there's a feed accelerator at the end of the rattle chain. I forgot about that, but that's that rattle chain. You can see that wood slat. So it throws everything onto these straw walkers. The grain falls through, and larger chunks. And as they're thrashing around, it slides back and goes onto your cleaning table, which is down here. And falls down right there, and then makes its way across here. This is shaking, and that cleans it as it falls through these slats, and then these even smaller slats down below. Get the clean grain separated. But that's how the Gleaners are a little bit unique, and that was their claim to fame, is that from the feeder house onward, it's all separation. It gets it threshed immediately, and then it's cleaning it and separating it the entire rest of the length of the combine, because the rattle chain is separating it, and then the straw walkers and your chaffer and sieve are all separating it and cleaning it. And I'd say that it does work very well, because like I said, there's no corn or anything comes out the back of this combine. The only loss is what shells at the stripper plates. So this is a very nice, very old combine, but it keeps getting the job done. Very economical to run too. I'm not sure on the size of that tank. Maybe it's 25-ish, something like that. But man, I can run 12, 13 hours on that. So it's probably using about 2 gallons an hour. Which is, that's pretty good for me. I'll take whatever savings I can get. But that's a Gleaner E. Still out harvesting crops, still doing its job just fine. Thanks for watching.